In this video, I'm going to show how to create a multicolor design to cut vinyl with the Brother ScanNCut using the Brother Canvas Workspace program. So I'm going to come over here to image tracing, and I've downloaded a PNG file from the internet. And so this is the original file that I downloaded. There were some edits that I needed to do to this in my image editing program, and so this is the result of the editing. After I edited it, it turned the background black because it was the nature of PNG files. So I'm going to open that one up, and I'll show you the edits that I had to make. In order to make a successful cut file, you need to have a completely enclosed path. And so for this whole area of the ship here, it was open to the background because there was a space here and there was a space here. And so in my image editing program, I just drew a line to connect these two and a line to connect these two. So now I can get a complete cut line from here. And then also this portion of the ship was unbroken to the water, and so this was just a single cut line, and so I also put a line right here to separate that up. So in order to trace this, I'm going to have to change the tracing options to trace areas by color because I want to get all the interior parts also. That looks pretty good, so I will say import. Okay, now it also imported the PNG file, which is, I don't need that. So I'm going to come over here to the layers, scroll down to the bottom. This is the image layer. So I'm going to click on the little eyeball so that it's hidden. So basically these are all the different cut files that were imported in. So I'm going to select the whole thing, going to come up to layer and ungroup, and then layer and unlock all. So now what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start coloring the different cut files to the color of vinyl that I'm going to want to use. So I'm going to hold down my control key, being careful not to move anything. I'm going to select the different cut files, and then I'm going to come up here to the fill color, and I'm going to change it to the color that I'm going to want to use. So the water, of course, is going to be blue. And then for the black parts of the ship, and then I can see which other parts I want to include. This little piece right here was missing. I also want the seagulls to be black. And so I will change all those to black. And I also want the outside of the anchor holes here to be black. And so I'll change those to black. And it looks like I got all the ones that I want to be black. Okay, now for the gray areas of the ship, I'll start selecting those, the parts that I want to be gray. And then I'll color those to gray. And it looks like I've missed one right here. And so I'll color that to gray. Okay, so the last thing we've got now is the windows. And so since those are pretty small, I'm going to zoom in. Come back to my select key. I'm going to hold down my control key and just select each of these windows. And also the inside of the anchor holes here. And then these windows here also. And these. Okay, and I'll change these colors to a light yellow. So now it looks like we've got everything colored. So I'm going to change my zoom to about 50%. Now I'm going to select all my cut files, And I'm going to just drag the whole thing down a little bit. Now I'm going to want to add some text. So I'll come up here to the text, and what I'm going to want to do is type in "Oh ship." And that's going to be my text. And I like this font. The font I'm using is A.R. Berkeley. I am going to include this one in my black layer. And so this is what the final design is going to look like. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select it all. I'm going to come over here to edit, and I'm going to change the width to 8.5 inches because that's a good width for an adult t-shirt. Okay, now we're going to start grouping our different colors. So I'm going to come over here to layers, and I'll start by selecting all the black shapes. So you just hold down the Control key and select all the black shapes. So that's all of them. So we'll go up to layer and we'll group them. And I can come up here and rename that group to black. And I can minimize the group if I want. Okay, now I'll come in and I'll select all the yellows. And so and then we'll come up to layer and group. And I'll come up here and I'll rename this group to yellow. And I can minimize it. Now I'll select all my blues. Layer and group. And I'll call this one blue. And then the last one, let's see, holding down my Shift key, since they're all in a row, I can select them all at one time. And layer and group, and I'll call this one gray. So now I have all my different colors grouped together. So I basically have a black layer, a yellow layer, a blue layer, and a gray layer. Now at this point, if you wanted, you could send each of these layers one at a time to your ScanNCut and cut it out. The way the design is right now, this would be for adhesive vinyl, where you would be cutting on the top of the vinyl. But if you're going to be using iron-on vinyl or HTV vinyl, what you're going to have to do is select everything, come up to Edit, and then you're going to want to come to Transform, and you want to flip. And then now these are the layers that you would be sending to your ScanNCut. And so we'll come back to Edit and we'll flip it back. Now one other thing that you can do, this is optional, but it may come in handy for when you're trying to align everything up, when you're ironing on your design to your t-shirt, and that's to put some kind of a registration mark on each of the individual layers. And so what I like to do for a registration mark is use a triangle. And so I'm going to size it down. And since we have 4 colors, I'm going to duplicate it 4 times. I'm going to select them all, being careful that I'm just selecting these 4. I'm going to come back to the Edit. I'm going under the Align. I'm going to align the objects to the center and to the middle. And so that lines up all 4 of the triangles together. And now you want to put it somewhere in your design so that you can assign it to each of the different layers. And so in this case, I'm putting it down near the bottom because my smallest layer is blue. If I were to put this triangle way up here, then I'd be wasting all this area when I'm cutting out my blue vinyl. And so this is a good area right here. It catches all the colors and doesn't waste a lot of vinyl in order to cut out this registration. Now we're going to assign one of each of these triangles to each of the colors. So we're going to come back over here, come to our layers, and you see here are our 4 shapes here. So I'm just going to click on this top shape and the black, and I'm going to come up here, layer, and I'm going to group them, and I'm going to change the color of that to black so that it's going to change the triangle to black also. And I'll rename this group to black. So now this black group has the black shape and the original black group. Now I'm going to click on the next shape, hold down the Control key, and I'll click on the yellow. Coming up here, layer, and I'm going to group it, and I will change this to the yellow color, and I'll rename this to yellow. So this yellow group includes the yellow shape and the original yellow group. Now I'll come down and click on the next shape, and I'll hold down the Control and click on blue. Come up to layer and group, change the color to blue, and so now I have a blue triangle associated with the blue group, and so now that's blue. And then we'll do our last shape and select it with the gray, come up to layer and group. I'll change the color of the entire group to gray and rename this group gray. So now I can minimize these groups. So I have my black, yellow, blue, and gray group, and they are all associated with their own individual color triangle. And so now we have each of these layers with its associated triangle here to use as a registration mark. As I said, this registration mark is completely optional, but it can come in handy. The important thing you want to do, though, especially if you use an iron-on, is you want to make sure that you don't accidentally iron on the triangle to your t-shirt as you're layering all the different colors on each other. And so how I prevent doing that is I cut just a little small piece of transfer paper, and I put under the triangle, and that transfer paper stays under the triangle so that as I press the rest of that layer down, that layer is going to be pressed onto the transfer paper instead of the t-shirt. So now I'm going to show you how you're going to transfer each of the individual layers to your ScanNCut in order to be cut. And so in this case, we're going to want to send our black layer. So we're going to turn off the little eyeballs for all the other different layered colors. And so now all we've got is our black layer. And so we come up to File, and we want to transfer the Fcm file via the internet. It says the objects that are hidden are not going to be exported, which is exactly what we want. We only want that black layer to be exported, and so we click OK. Click OK again. Now you go to your ScanNCut and you cut out the black layer. When you're finished with that, you turn off the black layer and we'll turn on the yellow layer. And so now we put our yellow vinyl onto the ScanNCut, go to File, Export via the internet, click OK a couple of times, go to your ScanNCut, cut out the yellow layer. Then when that's finished, we want to do our blue, and so File, Transfer via the internet, OK and OK. You go and you import it into your ScanNCut and you cut it. You come back and you import your gray and transfer via the internet, cut it out, and then you'll have all 4 of your layers now cut up by your ScanNCut. And so this is the final design, and you just iron them onto your t-shirt one at a time. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.